Good evening, everybody. Let me adjust something because this doesn't seem to be landed. Oh, that's all that is. I'm doing a couple things at the same time as I'm getting established. Matter of fact, um, I don't like the brightness of the camera, so I'm gonna give y'all a little bit more music to vibe to for a second, and I'm gonna adjust the camera, and I'll be right back. In the meanwhile, good evening, everybody. If you have any prayer requests, please be so kind as to put them in the chat, and we'll be addressing them momentarily. Good evening. All right, and just like that, we're back. So, good evening again, everybody, and thank y'all for logging on one more time to the Abyssinian Baptist Church. Yes, the blackest church in Memphis and Shelby County, and this is our Vision Board Bible Study. I'll say some more about what Vision Board Bible Study is for those who may be visiting with us for the first time. And as a matter of fact, if you are connecting with us for the very first time, please say something in the comment section because we want to be able to follow up with you. We thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with us in dialogue and discussion about matters of divinity. Good evening, Keitra. Good evening, Sister Colleen. Good evening, I think it is Say Ayunda Casey. Thank you for logging in. Hey, Samantha Mitchell, LOC family in the house. Hey, Dr. Terrell. Hey, Sister Miriam Brown Dorsey. Please give our regards to everybody at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. Hey, Shalia Butler. Peace and love, everybody. I want to make the most of our time. So again, if you have any prayer requests, won't you be so kind? Hey, Antoine Fisher, and no, not the movie star, y'all, even though that's my big cousin and he is a superstar to me, and also has a book out. He has dubbed them, and I can confirm this, the most powerful 30 pages out on the market. And so if y'all can be so kind, Antoine, if you could put a link to the book in the comment section, I'd appreciate that. It is a journey of his battle with grief after the loss of his son, Devontae Fisher. And so, hey, Antoine, thanks for logging in. Hey, Reverend Darrell, good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
So, again, if there are any prayer requests, please submit them in the chat. We'll make the most of our time. I know some of us are still getting settled like me from the evening. I'll say some things about Vision Board Bible Study overall. I'll do a little bit. Hey, Amber Sherman. I'll do a little bit of review from last week for those who did not catch it. But if you did not catch last week, I suggest. No, I'm sorry, it was the week before last. Last week was Valentine's Day, and I hope y'all showed some love to yourself and or those who you are in love with. Denise and I had a great time. She cooked, and she's a bad sister, and so love you, Denise. Who y'all make sure y'all salute her too, cause she's holding it down with the ABC Innovation Station, even as I'm trying to navigate some of these things too. Antoine, stop, man. So I'll review it, but if you did not catch part one week before last, I recommend you go back and catch it because I cannot spend the bulk of my time reviewing that wonderful and riveting discussion that we had last time. So if hearts and minds are clear, I would that we would all go to God in prayer together. And still, if at any time you want to submit a prayer request in the comment section, we'll do our best to entertain that. Holy God, loving God, liberating God, God who loves black folks, thank you for the gift of this time and this sacred space, both in the sanctuary and on the stream, as we seek to discuss the matters of divinity. We ask, oh God, that you would continue to ground us and root us in our quest for spiritual maturity. We ask, oh God, that you would meet all of us individually and collectively at our point of need. Be in every question and answer, every comment, every reflection. Be in all of the moments that we will share together so that we can collectively and individually be better tomorrow than we have been today. We ask these things in the name of our loving, living, and liberating Black Messiah, Jesus Christ. All of God's people typed and said together, Ashe and Amen. Listen, y'all, if you have not shared this, do us a favor and share this. Also, if there's somebody on your heart and mind that you think would benefit by being in dialogue with us this evening, at them in the comment section. And the Abyssinians amongst us, if you see somebody in the stream, why don't you show them some love, just say hello, show them some holy hospitality. Vision Board Bible Study is part of the Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church's strategic plan initiative. So we are grounding our strategic plan until 2025 in spiritual maturity. And so we have chosen to gather together regularly during our Bible study time in the spirit of Vision Board to discuss sights, sounds, and scriptures and to learn more in-depth strategies of discipleship. So for the last year and some change now, Abyssinians near and far have submitted questions or comments or scripture references that they have wanted us to teach on. And so I shared last week the prompt about this particular discussion that we've entitled, y'all type this in the comment section, Can I Get My Lick Back? Can I get my lick back? And I also brought up the themes last week, and I want to center them again about Black ethnicity and Black ethics, because we are looking at Genesis chapter 42. And too many of us who have been subject to white evangelical theological terrorism, too many of us who white folks taught about God, tend to believe that when we are reading scriptures, we're reading scriptures about ancient white Jews, and every now and then they might sprinkle a black person in. Well, that is definitely not the case. And the bottom line is this: when you are reading the Bible, with very few exceptions, you are reading the central history of people of northeastern African descent. And so when we start talking about some of the particulars in Genesis chapter 2 and some of the particulars across the board, we are talking about black folks, ethnically black folks, not racially, because race did not exist at that time, but from an ethnic standpoint, from a cultural standpoint. What we tend to know about black folks and how black folks move is evident and prevalent all throughout the scriptures. And so if we're talking about vengeance and trauma, type vengeance and trauma, then we have to be thinking about ethics from the experience of black folks. And so the prompt last week was shared and it came from Sister Chef Fran. And I don't want to go through the bulk of it, but it is in essence, when people have done you wrong, could you, is it okay in God's eyes and sight for you to get your lick back? And so we're looking at Joseph. Now, I told y'all the backstory very well. Hey, Reverend Frank. I told y'all the backstory last time about Joseph, and I'll review some of that momentarily because I think it's pertinent to where I feel God prodding us and pushing us to be in conversation this evening. But if you don't know the story of Joseph, the coat of many colors, Joseph sold into slavery, Joseph who was in Potiphar's house, Joseph who ends up in Pharaoh's palace, that Joseph is the one that is central in Genesis chapter 42, when he is technically like the Secretary of the Treasury, or maybe even the Secretary of State. He is a high-ranking official in Pharaoh's cabinet. So about 13 years after his enslavement. His enslavement is a byproduct of things his brothers contributed to. I'm using words very carefully here. Pay attention. I'm saying that his enslavement is a byproduct of things his brothers contributed to. So I spent some time last week talking about the dynamics that come to light in Genesis chapter 42 from an ethnic standpoint, because Joseph is in Pharaoh's palace, and Pharaoh is undoubtedly Egyptian. Joseph is there, and Joseph is a Hebrew. And we tend to think Hebrews and Egyptians are ethnically different when they're not. They are ethnically the same. There are some cultural nuances between the two groups, primarily based upon social, political, and economic status. Social, political, and economic status is the difference. And we know this because by the time Joseph's brothers end up in Egypt, in Pharaoh's palace, they can't tell the difference between Joseph and the rest of the Egyptians, which is to say they look alike, okay? Aesthetically, they look alike. They can't look and be like, oh, that must be a Hebrew right there. So, we talked last week about black ethnicity, and we also talked about black ethics. Because if you've been black for 15 minutes, you know there are certain rules that black folks understand even if they are unspoken. One of the rules of thumb in black ethics we talked about last week is if you hit me or harm me, I reserve the right to hit you back or harm you back, at least to the same level. Amber, I'm sick of you already. Yeah, kinda. Yeah. And all of us, NWA say, I'm a nigga, he a nigga, she a nigga, we some niggas. Wouldn't you like to be a nigga too? So it's kind of like, it's kind of like that, but not necessarily. So if you hit me or harm me, I reserve the right to hit you back or harm you back, at least to the same level that you hurt me or harm me, if not more. But I asked us last week to keep in mind the presumption in that black ethical framework is that we are black folks operating on equal planes or playing fields. So if there's a child that hits or harms a parent, we do not expect the parent to hit or harm the child, especially not to a larger degree than the child hit or harmed the parent, because the parent would be expected to be more mature. Type mature in the comment section. More reasonable, more responsible. So the parent should hold the child accountable, but not begrudge or harbor what happened and lay in wait to return the favor. That would be vengeance, type vengeance. So we talked some about the idea of forgiveness. I told y'all I wrote a whole essay with Dr. Andre Johnson about forgiveness. I don't want to go too much into that other than to say, here are the two primary points we presented last week. Type them in the comment section. 1, God does not require fake or false forgiveness. Y'all loved that point last week. It sets some folks free. God does not require, type it in the comment section. I can't see nobody typing at me. God does not require fake or false forgiveness, which is to say we do not need to allow a concept of forgiveness to end up being conflated with a lack of accountability. So even if or when we do forgive people who have wronged us, it does not mean that they should not be held accountable or responsible for what they have done. Told y'all last week, biblical forgiveness has particularities to it. We talked about Luke chapter 23, verse 34, where Jesus says, Father, forgive them. He didn't say, I forgive you. He says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. We talked last week about John chapter 1, verse 9. If we confess our sin, then God is faithful and just and will forgive us our sin and purify us from all unrighteousness. There's no mandate to forgive folks who ain't even asked for forgiveness. We also, as we said last week, need to be honest with ourselves because we are not always the one who have been wronged. We are also guilty of doing other people wrong. So the model prayer says, forgive us our debts or our trespasses as we have forgiven our debtors or those who trespass against us. So sometimes we have to look at it from the maturity of, it ain't always me that's the victim. And I'm going to want some grace. I'm going to want some mercy. Even if I affirm and accept the accountability, I still want some grace and some mercy where it can apply. So we need to be willing to extend that same thing. But God does not require fake or false forgiveness. Type that in the comment section. Here's the second point from last week. God does require faithful facilitation. God does require faithful facilitation. Because no matter what we've been through or dealt with, we are still expected to conduct and execute the actions that have been authorized to us, which is to say, no matter our level of trauma, God still trusts us to do what God has assigned us to do. Teach Earle Fisher. I said, regardless of our level of trauma, yes, regardless of how bad it is, it doesn't mean people will not be held accountable. It does not mean we have to falsify or flodge and formulate some fake forgiveness. No, but it does mean if God has given us an assignment, God has already calculated the level of trauma we will have to experience and manage. So God does require faithful facilitation. Joseph's brothers in this text in Genesis chapter 42 has not confessed their sins, so they don't have to be forgiven. And they did know what they were doing. Since they are clearly in the wrong, we spent some time last week talking about the levels of dysfunction and trauma at work within the passage, because sifting through the dynamics of trauma and dysfunction, which we'll do some more in a second, helps us to better see God and ourselves in the passage. Now, don't forget this. The first 2 points is God does not require, God does require. I'm going to talk about us today. There's a lot of trauma present in the passage. We talked about that last week. And when we can push past the pain and the trauma and properly process what the assignment is, we then figure out how to mediate grace instead of asking for malicious get back. I'm going to say some more about that. Because last week, here's where we kind of concluded. In order to get your lick back, you got to be on equal playing fields. So if you end up in a position like Joseph ends up here, where you're socially, politically, and economically, and I would even argue theologically, above the ones who committed the infraction, you have to lower yourself in order to get them back. Teach Earle Fisher. Don't log off, lean in. If we have social, political, theological, familial power over the people who harmed or wronged us, it is not getting your lick back. It is mismanaging your ministerial platform. Joseph at this point is not in danger of them harming him again. Amber, I can't stand you right now. Amber says what she's hearing is we can get our lick back, just not maliciously. No, here's what you should hear. If you get your lick back, you have to be lowered to the same level of the people you've been elevated above. If you are elevated above them by the time you re-encounter them, it ain't getting your lick back, it's mismanaging your ministerial platform. Now don't log off, Amber, lean in. Okay? Here's what I'm saying. Spiritual maturity always requires that we consider our relationship dynamics and the power dynamics at work in the relationship. So at some level, it is petty and immature to sacrifice or compromise the level God has elevated us to, just to say, through vengeance and trauma, I got even. You didn't get even. You sacrificed the progress and the advancement and the blessings God has bestowed despite your trauma. said, Frank is laid out on the floor right now. Y'all should see how Reverend Darrell and Reverend Frank looking at me in here. I'm just playing. I'm saying spiritual maturity means managing your emotions. It sounds like something that's in a mission statement. Emotional stability. It means, I'm going to say it like I feel it now, it means growing up such that you stop waiting around to see how you're going to pay folk back because they did you wrong, even though despite how wrong they did you, God blessed you exceedingly and abundantly above all you can ask or think according to the power at work within you. And you take it on, and let me put my jacket on. I ain't coming to play with y'all. I should put my jacket on early. Now, spiritual maturity demands that we deal with our desire. I know it's tough, Angelo, stick with me. Our desire for vengeance and confront the realities of our trauma. That's what you do when you spiritually mature. Before you get them back, before you, let me put it in this context. Before you compromise the platform God has blessed you with, before you sacrifice all of the good things God has provided for you, deal with the desire for vengeance. Why you want to get, listen to me, type this in the comment section. Why do I want to get them back so badly? Here's something I had to learn in basketball. I was a competitive guy, right? And I understand there's going to be limitations to this reference point. But basketball is a game that's played back and forth. And unlike football, the same person who plays basketball on offense, if you're on the court, you got to play basketball on defense. So if I'm playing defense and somebody scored a basket on me, when I was younger and more immature as a player, I always felt like I had to go back and score on the person who just scored on me. Notice I said when I was younger and more immature. As I matured, I realized I had a higher level of responsibility. I had a higher platform. I had a higher purpose. I was concerned more with my team winning than I was proving to the person who scored on me that I could score back on you. Now, did it happen sometime? Absolutely, as God would see fit. But it was in the framework of the team strategy. So I'm asking you to put this in the comment section so that it can sit with you. Why do you have a desire to get them back? Are you not winning? Do you feel like you're losing? There are things related to our desire for vengeance that we need to address, and there are realities related to our trauma that we need to deal with. Just because they deserve it, Amber, does not mean you have to get them back. Here's something the elders used to say. Gotta handle it. Got. And look, it's quite possible that God will create a table before you, even in the presence of your enemies. You don't, okay, now, this happened I don't know, did I do that? Because me and Denise discussed this last time. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, the thumb up thing. Was that the thumb down? I think that was the thumbs down. That means y'all don't like what I'm preaching now. No, I'm just playing. God prepares the table. And maybe some of us who have not adequately dealt with our desires or reconciled with the realities of our trauma think we supposed to create the table. That ain't what the psalmist says. God creates a table before me even in the presence of my enemies. Now, here's the thing. I'm so focused on God and the table, I don't care if my enemies are there or not. I just want God to bless me with the table. So here's what we need to do. Type this in the comment section, y'all. We must direct the focus of our frustration. Now, I'm about to try to establish some criteria on getting your lick back. Because it is possible that, God might provide the opportunity, but here's what I want us to consider, even as we desire payback. You better begin by addressing the root cause of the trauma. Come here. I said direct the focus of the frustration. I'm going to read verses 1 through 5 in Genesis chapter 42. So if you got a Bible or a Bible app, turn to it. Lee Kendrick, hey, good evening. I see your comment. I'll come to it in a second. Let me try to press this point out right quick. The point is, everybody type this now. We must direct the focus of our frustration. Chapter 42, verses 1 through 5. When Jacob, somebody type Jacob in the comment section, learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, why y'all sitting here looking at each other? You know he a black father. Because I'm telling you, that's something. Why y'all sitting up here looking at each other? He said, I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us so that we may live and not die. Quick aside, back to black ethnicities. Whoever these Hebrew people are, live close enough to Egypt to walk to get there. Ain't no Uber, ain't no Amtrak, ain't no American or Delta or United Airlines, okay? He's telling his sons, there's a famine where we are, but there is grain in Egypt. I need y'all to go to Egypt, buy some for us so that we can live and not die. This is verse 3. Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. Verse 4. But Jacob, type Jacob, did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others because he was afraid that harm might come to him. So Israel's sons, for the record, Israel and Jacob are the same person. Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for there was famine in the land of Canaan also. I want to read verse 4 again. But Jacob, type Jacob in the comment section. I can't see nobody typing at me. Did not send Benjamin, and watch how they describe Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him. I said we must direct the focus of our frustration. When we were talking last week about getting the lick back, who do we think Joseph should pay back? Type it in the comment section. Who you think Joseph should pay back? LaKendrick, do me a favor. Copy and paste your comment again, because I don't want it to get lost in the sauce of what I'm about to say. I want to try to scroll up on it. Just in case I miss it, put it back in there because I want to address it. Yes, Keitra, his brothers. We think he should get his brothers back. He should get his brothers back, right? He should get his brothers back. Anybody object to that? He should get his brothers back. His brother's the one enslaved him. He should get it. Well, the reality is, Jacob is the one playing favorites. It is Jacob's inability to equitably distribute his love to all 12 of his sons. And now, because he's playing favorites, he has his sons at odds with each other. I can't see nobody typing at me. I'm about to help somebody. Nobody ever really checks Jacob. And by the way, for the mothers out there, we don't even hear from Rachel. And Joseph is not Jacob's first son. Joseph is Jacob's 11th son. He got 10 sons prior to Joseph. But it is Rachel's firstborn. Joseph has 10 half-brothers. But nobody really checks the parents in creating conditions and cultures in the house that cause division and jealousy amongst the children. Please be very clear. What happens in chapter 42 starts well before chapter 42. Go back to chapter 37. And let me just lean in and teach black for a second, because this is exactly how white supremacist patriarchy and misogyny and theological terrorism continues to function right now. Think about how much black folks are feuding with each other. Think about how much men blame women and women blame, I'm talking about black women blaming black men for everything. Black men blaming black women for everything. You got queer folks blaming straight folks for everything. Straight folks blaming queer and gay folks for everything. You got cisgendered folks blaming trans folks. Trans folks blaming cisgender. You got rich folk blaming black folk. Blaming everybody except for the source of the trauma and the continued supplier of the trauma. I'm having too much fun now because this time is flying.
So you're saying that the trauma is being misdirected?
Reverend Darrell asked me if I'm saying the trauma is being misdirected. Yeah, because the kids should have beef with the parents. But we think Joseph's supposed to pay his brothers back without ever asking the question, why did the brothers feel that way? What was the parent doing to mediate between the children? Jacob gives this man the coat of many colors. He playing favorites. That's what, there you go, Reverend Darrell. That's what popped it off. And Sister Casey, yeah, in a sense, maybe Daddy did it, but I just got a sneaking suspicion because I know how black households work. Daddy ain't operating by himself. Don't forget, this is Rachel's firstborn. Now, I don't want to do too much what's called eisegesis. I ain't going to read too much into the text because it don't say that Rachel told Jacob, but that's my boy. That's my boy right there. The rest of them kids, them Leah's kids. Them ain't my kids. We don't know the particulars of the dynamics, but we do know we've been conditioned to expect Joseph to enact vengeance rooted in a trauma that does not start with his brothers. Also, if you ever go back and read chapter 37, this is why you got to make sure you direct your frustration. See, if we left off last week, even the folks who said, yeah, I still need to get my lick back, see, you going to pay back somebody who don't deserve to be paid back. Maybe that's why the elders used to say, God will take care of it. Or maybe that's why the scripture says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Because there's so many parts of the picture that we don't tend to see. Genesis chapter 37 acknowledges that the siblings have different personalities and postures. So one of Joseph's half-brothers, the firstborn, Reuben, actually tries to stop what happens to Joseph. Not only Reuben, Judah negotiates with the rest of the brothers because the plot was to kill Joseph. The plot wasn't starting off saying, let's sell him into slavery. That was a compromise. Now let's talk about getting your lick back again, because last week everybody pay all of them brothers back. All of them guilty. See, and that's how trauma works. It makes us so immature and so impulsive because we won't deal with the source of it, that we will mess around and lash out and hit people that don't deserve to be hit. And as a matter of fact, let's wrestle with this question. Judah negotiated so that they didn't kill Joseph. So does Joseph owe Judah something? I mean, you counting where the lick's coming from and who did what, right? But last week, nobody said, hey, which one of the brothers were primarily responsible? Did any of his brothers speak up? And I'm inclined to believe, because I know the Blackest Church of Memphis and Shelby County, most of us ain't went back and read what happened in Genesis chapter 37. I mean, you could have. You could be so curious and so desirous of spiritual maturity. You could be so responsible, not just sitting back waiting for Pastor Earle to tell you what scriptures to read, that if we started looking at Genesis chapter 42, and you know there's a character in there named Joseph, and you know he ends up in the palace, you might want to go back and read for yourself just in case your pastor missed something. Okay, I digress. Don't log off, lean in. My point is, if we calculating who getting licks and who deserves this and you trying to pay folk back, I didn't hear nobody last week say we need to focus on Jacob and the parents who foster an environment of favoritism and causes sibling rivalries. We didn't say, did anybody step up for Joseph? We didn't know that part of the reason Joseph is still alive is because one of his brothers said, let's not kill him. Here's a compromise. I know y'all want to do something, let's rough him up a little bit, throw him into a pit. Joseph could have been dead. Does he owe Judah some gratitude? But see, this is what happens when some of us end up in positions of power and authority. We forget some of those particulars. We just trying to figure out who we gonna get. Who we gonna get back. I couldn't wait till I got to that position. So I'm gonna tell them, no. See, you missing it. Spiritual immaturity has us missing it. Impulsive desires for revenge cause us to group people together unjustly, and it creates too much collateral damage. I'm gonna get all of them. All of them didn't do it. And clearly, if you want to get all of them, and you will not direct the focus of your frustration, you too spiritually mature to properly manage the platform. And if I was you, instead of worried about getting them back, I'd be worried about my spiritual maturity, because I don't want to forfeit the platform God has provided for me. Trust me, I'm a pastor. Do you know what it would be like if I got everybody back? Y'all listen. I'll try to tell you. Let me say this last part, and then I'll wrap it up. Y'all, I can see y'all looking at me funny on the stream. Ooh, it's some weak comments in here. LaKendrick, let me come to you. You said what you hear in the context of the text is don't punch down or win those who have less to lose from the conflict than I do. You should be mature and go high. And I don't know if it's going high. I'm saying I'm not even going to look at it as I'm high, they low. I'm looking at it as I got a divine assignment, which leads me to this last thing right here. As a matter of fact, maybe this will answer your question. So, don't forget it again. Hey, good evening, David. David, I'm just realizing. We got an inside joke. I'm just realizing something about the numbers, but that's funny. Anywho. So, write this in the comment section again. Direct the focus of our frustration. But here's the other thing. Type this in the comment section too. Be disciplined and faithful enough to fulfill the dream. Be disciplined and faithful enough to fulfill the dream. Hey, Big C Music. I'm not sure exactly who that is, but hey, good evening. If we jump to verse 8 and 9, we see something that we don't see or hadn't seen yet. So I'm saying be disciplined and faithful enough to fulfill the dream, because if you're not careful, your unchecked immaturity and trauma will make you forfeit the fulfillment of the divine dream. This kicks off because Joseph has a dream. God shows him a dream. Now, God didn't say, hey, go tell your brothers about this dream. That's another story for another week we can discuss.
You still in chapter 37?
I'm in chapter 37. Yes, chapter 37 is the beginning where he has the dream, then he shares the dream. And, you know, hey, all y'all gonna bow down to me, right? But, you know, God gives him this dream. And now, several years later, 13 years later, watch what happens. Joseph's brothers, who sold him into slavery, have to come to him. They need help. Here's what verse 8 says. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they don't recognize him. Now, for those of us who want impulsive vengeance, here's his chance. He could do it. Bam, he got a leg up on him, right? But watch what happens in verse 9. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, y'all some spies. Y'all came here to see where our land is unprotected. Now notice, he does not reveal to them that he knows who they are. So let me ask this. And I want y'all to answer this in the comments. I'm sitting, Reverend Frank, Reverend Derrick. What would be the equivalent of Joseph getting his lick back? What does that look like? So everybody been, you know, who've been thinking about it, he should get him back. What should he do exactly? Frank said, what should he do there? What should he do? How should he get his lick back? If we plan get your lick back, what should he do? Now his brother's right there. He got the drop on. Run the face. Brandy. Frank said the same thing. Frank said, start swinging on the niggas. Just right out the gate. Just pow, pow, pow. Just. Okay. All right. Anybody else? You know, what should he do? Okay. Just not help him. Okay, Sister Casey. Yeah, not help him. That's an option. Okay. So is what not getting his lick back? Where he called them spies and didn't tell them who he was immediately? I'm going to argue, no, that's not him getting his lick back. Angelo, this is not David and Goliath. I don't know if the text says anywhere that Joseph has a slingshot. He might have one somewhere. You know, they did take up arms. He probably had a sword or a spear or something like that. But yeah, I'm going to argue. So David is letting them be. Is that getting your lick back? I'm asking because we've conjured up something just on the surface by impulse, and there's nothing wrong with impulses if you don't act on them, right? Because we are human, so we have impulses. I'm saying spiritual maturity means you recognize and identify what the impulse is, and then you try to get to the source of it and see if it's trauma-ridden, so that you can respond more maturely. That's what responsibility is. It's the ability to respond maturely. He could have withheld the resources from them and let them starve. So let's just say, consider all of this. Okay, cool. But if he would have done any of those things, he would have forsaken his opportunity to fulfill his dream. All he had to do to fulfill the dream, and in the dream, if you go back and read it, he says his brothers are going to bow down to him. They ain't bowed yet because they don't even know who he is, right? But they're asking for something. Now, if he starts swinging on them, he's going to get in trouble with Pharaoh. And he will compromise the fulfillment of his dream. What he has to do in this moment in order to, don't forget now, he recognized them, they don't recognize him. And the next thing that happens is he remembers the dream. And he starts disciplining himself. He don't out himself. He stays disciplined and does his damn job. Type this in the comment section. Do your damn job, okay? God gave you a job to do. You sitting up here trying to figure out how you going to get niggas back, and you finna forfeit the fulfillment of the dream. I ain't got time to be trying to figure out how to get niggas back. I'm too busy trying to make sure I do my damn job so that I can get the fulfillment of the dream God showed me.
So he understood the assignment.
Reverend Darrell said he understood the assignment. That ain't what I said type, Keetra. I said type, no. This is Blackest Church in Memphis and Shelby County, okay? Type this. Do your damn job, okay? Because this black ethics we talking about. Yeah, thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Dr. Terrell. See, because you know, some folks don't understand nothing but the cuss. See, you know, you're not gonna mature if you don't. I will get there, Sister Casey. How he gets there, yeah, after that. But I'm saying this: what he starts to do in verse 9 is his job. His job is to protect the grain that has been assigned to him. He has a duty to vet those who come to get what is under his jurisdiction. And it don't matter who they are. So even though he has a history with them, he does not treat them any differently than he would have treated anybody else. He would have had to make sure that they aren't about to infiltrate the stash. So he does not reveal himself. You have to be disciplined and faithful enough to make sure the dream is fulfilled. You're going to mess around and spill the beans trying to get some revenge that you don't even need to get. Stay focused and do your. Here's the question I'm asking y'all, and then I'm done. I'll take any questions y'all have. We got a few minutes left. What is the assignment that God has given to you? What's that dream? What's that vision? Come on, this Vision Board Bible study. You should be seeing something. What's that thing God showed you? And it ain't happened yet. I hope the reason it hasn't happened is because you busy trying to get licks back. Stay disciplined. Stay focused. Do your damn job. Do what God told you to do. Yeah, look, I don't know, Angelo, if it's just this matter of toughness as much as it is the desire to see the fulfillment of what God wants and shown us has to be higher and deeper than the desire to get the lick back. Be very clear. I still reserve the right to slap the taste out of niggas' mouths. I reserve the right to do it. But I just have to count the cost. And my desire to please and honor God is higher than my desire to pay people back who I feel like did me wrong. Yeah, there's some emotions that we'll explore next week because I want to dig a little bit more into a couple more of these things next week before we wrap this up for the month. But yeah, you know, I mean, he's clearly emotional and he engages in some strategic maneuvering. But I'm saying, look at the discipline. Like, if you are too spiritually immature, as soon as you see them, you immediately think about what they did to you, and you feel like you got the upper hand and the drop on them, and you've been waiting 13 years to get them back. Well, you've been waiting 13 years to get them back? You still mad? You 6 significant others removed from this one, and you still mad at that one? You 6 supervisors removed from that old job, and you still got an axe to grind against them? How much time and energy have been wasted trying to let me say this last thing. I meant to say something about this earlier. I didn't, but we have to, from a black ethics standpoint, recognize and understand when we are dealing with people from inside our community versus dealing with people from outside of our community. Because there are things that you have to grit and bear that come from inside your community when you're working on something, when you're trying to build something, that you don't necessarily have to grit and bear when it's happening from outside your community. For instance, when the Ten Commandments are written, did we talk about this last time? When the Ten Commandments are written, one of the commandments is thou shalt not kill. Those are rules that are intended to be ethics that govern us internally. Don't kill the people in your community. Find a way to work it out without killing them. Now, if you end up in a fight against the Philistines, that's a different group. That's external. So David can kill Goliath, chop his head off, and walk around with the head as a trophy. I'm not trying to condone the violence. I'm trying to describe the different ethical context. Because for us as black folks, we so busy trying to get other black folks back. Now that white boss been messing all y'all over. You scared to deal with the white boss though.
No.
So you gonna take it out on the other black co-worker. Reverend Earle said, niggas don't do that. Yes, a nigga do. See, the internal is governed differently than the external. When Jesus says turn the other cheek, he's talking about internally, not externally. And we spend so much time trying to get folks back from within, we keep letting the folks from outside get off scot-free. Reverend Frank said, like the Edge board. They steal money, and we won't confront the Edge board, but you confront a nigga who owe you $15. And he borrowed it 15 minutes ago. You want it back. Your wages have been stolen for decades. Okay, I digress. Y'all put your questions and your comments in there, but don't forget these two things, because I said what God expects last time. Here's what we have to grow to. So, yes, God does not require fake or false forgiveness. God does require faithful facilitation. So we have to direct the focus of our frustration, and we have to be disciplined and faithful enough to fulfill the dream. I ain't got enough time left, LaKendrick. And y'all, do me a favor. Brother LaKendrick, Reverend LaKendrick Harris, and his wife have recently celebrated the birth of their son, Justice. So we want to celebrate that. Ashe, Ashe. We definitely pray God's choices, blessings on you, your wife, and your son. Questions, comments, feedback, what y'all think? I got a little bit more I'll deal with next week on some more of this stuff from some of those other verses, but let's start to walk some of this back, because a lot of this desire for vengeance is very impulsive and immature. Got bigger fish to fry. Got better things to do with our time. Daughter Justice, I'm so sorry. Daughter Justice, yes, salute to the Princess Justice. Ashe, Daughter Justice, thanks for that. Beautiful girl, too, now that I'm thinking about the picture now. Yeah. Questions, comments? Reverend Frank, Reverend Earle, anybody on the stream? Questions, comments? Keitra, what Chef Fran got to say now? No, I'm just playing. I'll grant y'all another minute or so since it's 7 o'clock now. If y'all have any questions, any comments, any curiosities, if not, please be sure to read the rest of that chapter. And if I was you, I'd go all the way back to chapter 37 and kind of walk my way up to get the broader context. For those who are watching and logged in for the first time, thank you. We hope that you would follow us on all of our social media outlets. So, some of you are watching on Facebook. Make sure you have liked the Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church Facebook page. Some of us have tuned in on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I don't know, but some may be watching on Instagram. If so, make sure you click the follow button on the Abyssinian Missionary Baptist Church page. And also, for those who are able, if you would be so kind, we would like for you to send us a financial contribution so that we can continue to produce this type of content and share it broadly and widely with everybody. Especially for those Abyssinians who may have forgotten to share of your tithe and or offering on this past Sunday. You don't have to wait till this Sunday. You can give via Cash App, via PayPal, Givelify, old school snail mail on the P.O. box that's on the screen, or you can mail a check or a money order to 3890 Mill Branch, Memphis, Tennessee, 38116. We don't care how you give here, just give here because you can. I don't know about y'all, but I'm enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to us discussing it a little bit further next week. So, yes, Angelo, definitely took time. Hey, because who's to say? That response probably would have been different 3 years prior, 10 years prior. I don't know. And I'm glad that God is patient with us like that, too. You know, and I think we have to learn to be patient with others as much as possible and patient with ourselves. And again, I'm saying this from the internal perspective. At the end of the day, y'all, these still is brothers. Dysfunction notwithstanding, trauma notwithstanding, all of that notwithstanding, these are still his brothers. Our pleasure, Sister Reverend Casey. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all hear these words of benediction. I'll chop it up with these brothers in here in the sanctuary for a little while long. And again, for those who want to catch us next week, we will be in the sanctuary and on the stream next Wednesday to talk about part 3 of Can I Get My Lick Back? If y'all got some questions that y'all want me to consider between then and now, you can email them to abcministries1@gmail.com or send me something on the social medias, and I'll do my best to respond to you or at least prepare something for next week. Also, this Sunday, we will be fully virtual. Type that in the comment section, fully virtual. And Abyssinian will be blessed by one of the best preachers in the country, my dear brother, the Reverend Dr. William Marcus Smalls, who is the senior pastor of the New Calvary Baptist Church in Norfolk, Virginia. I can't wait to hear Pastor Small bless the Blackest Church in Memphis and Shelby County. Hear these words of benediction. May God bless you and keep you. May God make God's face to shine upon you. May God go with you and give you peace no matter where you may go. In the name of our loving, living, and liberating Black Messiah, Jesus the Christ, all of God's people typed and said together, Ashe and Amen.